I'm constantly surprised by how stupid and gullible people are. This is the thing, okay? You have to understand that biologically, all right, we're supposed to be shitting in the woods and scraping, you know, like the meat off of the hide of animals that we've killed by throwing spears at it, okay? Everything on top of that, you have to work for, okay? At a base level, we really aren't that much. The thing that makes us different from everyone else on the planet, everything else in the planet, is that we can store a lot up here and, you know, work with it. And also we got hands, and our dicks are pretty big, too. Hello? Hello, hello? I guess the internet's been a little bit funky lately. After stream today, I'll knock the router around a bit. I'll give it what for. I'll hit it with the old one, too. No desync on the audio, right? Okay. There's a decent chance anytime the audio's being weird that it's literally because Ruben bolted past the router and knocked it around. What was I saying? Okay, I'm being serious with this, by the way. I think one of the big issues we have collectively with our understanding of the world and our education and our educational gap is that for all of human history, most people were very uneducated. Most people were essentially peasants. In America, up until essentially like the post-World War II period, most people were basically peasant. They weren't literally peasants in like the labor relations sense, but they were peasants in the like, you know, relative social power sense. You know, they were proletariat, they were barely educated, they were barely literate, right? And nowadays, since World War II in America, we have achieved a level of like universal emancipation where we have essentially devalued education by making it ubiquitous. It used to be you knew what the uneducated looked like because you saw them in every town in America, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why in so many countries in the world, education is still highly sought after. Because if you're living in like a very poor country, if you're in India, for example, like India produces a lot of very intelligent people, right? Like they come to our schools. I think that over in India, you know what a lack of education looks like because the country is 1.4 billion people. You can go to any town and see people who have like literally no education or very little education, and you're like, holy shit, I gotta study, I gotta like look to the books. Same with China. Very recently came up from a generally like essentially from the peasantry. You know, there are people alive who still remember when the average Chinese citizen was a peasant. You know what I'm talking about? But now as a consequence of like modernity, education is ubiquitous, thus it's boring, thus you take it for granted and you don't know what its absence looks like. You forget how valuable, say for example, a sewage system is when you until you don't have it anymore. Everyone's like, oh, who cares about the USPS? Oh, a mail can get from one side of the country to the other in 2 days. Who cares? Well, you'll care when it's not there anymore, you know? You get used to it. I know this is kind of part of the broader take that I've had about nihilism and comfort, but I think with education specifically, what people have forgotten is like, now that everyone takes education for granted, you just expect everyone to have a baseline level of education, people are like, what the fuck do you mean you don't believe in germ theory? And it's like, dude, germ theory up until recently was this like relatively obscure thing. Like, I'm sorry, not in like the educated circles, but like to the common public, it's not intuitive. Like it's invisible disease. It doesn't make as much sense as like, well, if the air smells bad, that means there's disease in it, you know? It's not as intuitive. So we're regressing because nobody believes in this shit anymore. You have to fight aggressively for every step, and you have to never, ever, ever, ever forget how important it was to walk up those stairs, you know? You know what I mean, right? It's like we get shocked that people don't believe things that throughout history basically no one has believed, you know? And I just think it's because what are the social consequences of not knowing germ theory? Most people just wash their hands because their hands feel icky or because they're told to. They don't think about it. If you truly believe the U.S. is doomed, then why are you even doing this? Is it just fear-mongering? I don't understand the point of constantly telling people there's no hope. Wait, when in this entire rant have I said there's no hope? When did I say that? Was that even a part of what I was talking about? Did you just want to say, have you been holding that in the chat box for like 30 minutes waiting for me to say something apropos and you just eventually you were like, fuck it, and you just dropped it here? Because I didn't say something that like led into it? You do say it's over a lot? Yeah, and life is an oscillation between we're so back and it's so over. I'm sorry, that's just life. You have an issue with life? The sun rises and the sun sets. What do you want from me? What do you want your political content to be? Bro, the sun is rising today! Let's go! This era will never end! Folks, It's 9 p.m. and I gotta let you guys know. I didn't think it would ever reach this point. I'm sorry. I hope things get better again. What do you like? What you're come on. Just buy the dip. Way to deflect with nonsense like usual. People don't have a problem with life. They have a problem with your constant doom or hypocrisy. For one, I disagree. People do have a big problem with life. That's actually one of the reasons we're in the place we are right now. For two, I think like what you're experiencing right now, unfortunately, is a kind of lifestyle political hobbyism, where you consume this content because you're trying to achieve a certain emotional outcome. What you're doing is you're watching the live stream of an individual whose thoughts and feelings, and I express myself, you know? There's a wide tapestry of feelings that I have. I'm a realized person, you know? This isn't a brand. There isn't a writer's desk, you know? Nobody's working on these bits, which is why they suck sometimes. You can't, if you're mad at that process, what you're essentially saying is you want like greater curation in the stuff that you consume or engage with, which isn't necessarily wrong. I just don't know what the fuck you're doing then. I will say though, most people still have no idea what dooming is. We've had this conversation a bunch of times before. Just don't want you to be a hypocrite so often. I'm not being a hypocrite. Your expectations just haven't been met. That's not hypocrisy on my part. You don't know what it means. Most people don't know much about anything. That's probably true, yeah. Ruben! Gotcha. Speaking of people who don't know much about anything, I gotcha. You've been caught. What's weird about this? You saying it's so over and we're so cooked makes me feel demoralized. So some days I can't watch you, but that's not hypocrisy. It's your mood being a detriment to mine. Yeah, that's responsible engagement with content, of course. Also, it's important to understand that we're so cooked and it's so over are not necessarily doomer statements, you know? Doomerism isn't a statement, right? Like, you can look online and find people whose content and whose online engagement has devolved entirely into like cynical do-nothingism, you know, which is pretty different from just feeling demoralized by the objectively bad news. Yeah, you want to talk about doomerism? Okay, at least I'm pro-natalist, all right? You bring up pro-natalism and 50,000 people in chat are like, listen, I just think that the only known sapient intelligent species in the universe should die out because like people are upset, people like are mad about their rent payments or something. Like, yeah, that's the doomer statement. Deflecting with nonsense again. I don't know what that means. Here, don't distract me. You can't just that's a fallacy me every time I say something funny. It means they're too stupid to understand your explanations. No, well, I think it's that a lot of people only want to engage with information that affirms their priors, which is kind of why we're in the place that we're at right now with conservative media as well. It's the reason why conservatives are effectively immune to logic, you know? Like, every day on Twitter, you have conservatives, like, praising Trump for doing things they attacked Biden for, or praising Trump for doing things that Trump himself said that he wasn't going to do. You have Nazi pedophiles calling trans people pedophiles, and then they'll retweet, like, fucking pro-lolly slop shit or whatever. Like, it's because, like, they don't engage with all of this as, like through a process of, like, you know, you start with your priors and then you engage with it. Does it validate those priors? Yes, no. They don't think about it. It's just, like, what makes them feel good, you know? Is that not a symptom of being stupid? I mean, in a sense, yeah, but unfortunately, like, it's a lot more malicious than just being stupid. Maybe it's more than rent payments, and more so that it's almost guaranteed that you will suffer immensely at most parts throughout your life. Stop watching live streams. Go outside. Life is not suffering immensely at most points, okay? Come on. Life is suffering moderately at some points. So come on, Jesus. You go improve your life, all right? Stop fucking making your negativity infectious. For you, maybe if you're lucky. Here, I'm going to make the decision to go outside easier for you.